And we're going to take you back in time to 1990, a time when there was no civilization, a time before civilization, and kind of talk about the process that Bruce and I went through to create this game called Civilization. And we will get to our next slide here somehow, or not.
What is that on?
There we go. So the approach we want to take is kind of talk about the thought process that we went through to create the game. With the hindsight of 25 years, a lot of things that we did seemed to be the right thing to do. Some of the things we did turned out to be the wrong thing to do. But we would like to justify even the wrong things, explain why we did them that way and what we were thinking at the time. It was kind of a audacious game for us to make, and the idea that we were going to kind of compress the entire history of civilization into a computer game, not only the actual history, but every possible history that could have happened of civilization, we were trying to put into this game. It was a time when we were young and audacious, and we had just finished Railroad Tycoon, which is kind of the first God game that we worked on. We were working on Covert Action, which was an attempt to write a computer-generated mystery novel. Didn't quite turn out that way, but that was kind of our goal at the beginning. We had just finished Pirates, which was one of the very first open world kind of games. So it was a time when we thought we could do anything, and sure, let's take on the history of civilization and make a game out of that. Both Bruce and I are kind of interested in history and have a background in wargaming and other things, which kind of ended up showing up in the game of Civilization. But the way that I remember for those of you that are not familiar with Civilization, it's a game about world history, okay? So
it starts in the Stone Age, and you end up by going to Alpha Centauri, taking humanity into space. 6,000
years of human history in 640K. So as I remember the story, Bruce and I were, I remember us riding on a train up to New York, I think, and we had recently completed Railroad Tycoon and really enjoyed that experience, that kind of God game-ish, start with something small, build it, use your own creativity to basically tell a different story every time you play. The idea of different systems kind of working together, the operation of the railroads, the building of the railroads, the financing of the railroads, maintaining your locomotives, routing your trains, lots of fun little pieces that kind of came together to make a lot of interesting decisions. And we were looking for another topic that would have those kind of qualities to it. And somehow we thought, well, you know, history has a lot of that going on, and it's kind of the ultimate God game, starting with one little village back in 4000 BC and seeing how far we could go with it. That's how I remember it. I'm not sure, Bruce, how you remember it.
I just remembered we talked a lot about that kind of stuff, and then Sid always had like a half a dozen prototypes on his computer. He was always noodling a new game idea, you know, and then we'd look at it, we'd talk about it, maybe somehow he wouldn't tell me about it. Then I remember these conversations went on, we played a lot of Empire Deluxe, and we talked about, you gave me a task to come up with 10 things I would change about Empire Deluxe if I could change anything. And trying to be a progressive person, I came up with 12 and gave him the list. And then one day, a disk pops on my desk, and I have it at home. It's a 5 1/4-inch floppy disk from May of 1990, and it's the first playable version of Civilization that anybody had ever seen other than his computer. I saved this as a historic artifact. I hadn't saved the first version of Railroad Tycoon. I'm determined to save whatever's coming down the pipe next. I'd save the first version. So that's my memory. We had played all these other games, and then this came together enough for you to feel that it was good enough for somebody else to look at.
Yeah, I think we need to give credit to Empire as part of the inspiration for Civ, also SimCity, also Railroad Tycoon. There's also a board game actually called Civilization that was out there at the time.
And we played that. Francis Tresham designed it in England, and Avalon Hill had published an American version of it.
We stirred all those ingredients together. We're going to claim that the topic was one of the things we did right in Civilization, that it was a good topic. It really lent itself to the kind of games we wanted to make and the place we were with the technology in those games.
Also, it had a huge potential audience. I mean, one of my talking points over the years has been when you start a project, your potential customer is everybody who has the platform that game is going to be on. But as soon as you make decisions about what that game is about, you start to shrink your potential audience. Well, the history of civilization is a pretty big topic, so we had a huge potential audience. Remember, later on when Sid gave the first presentation I ever heard about game design, one of his topic points was choose a big topic. And I said, I think we'd already made Civilization by that time. I'm not sure, but I said, well, there can't be a bigger one than the history of civilization.
Yeah, we talk about trying to make games epic. The fact that it really doesn't cost any more to make a game epic than to make it non-epic. So the next thing that we kind of had to figure out was how are we going to approach this topic. Obviously, there could be many, many different games written on the topic of civilization. So how are we going to approach this? One of the ideas that really, I think, paid off for us was the idea of starting very small with that first settler, that first city. The topic could be intimidating, so I think allowing you to start with a very simple problem, very simple situation, founding that first city, that led to something else. The first settler, the first unit, exploring. So that was one of the ideas that we had in terms of the tone and the approach. Another one was there's a strange mixture to me in looking back at Civ 1 of humor and incredible seriousness. Like parts of it, you know, here's the Lions defeat Gladiators 7-0. You know, that was our attempt at humor. Our little friend Elvis here in our city screen. So there were ways that we wanted to make the history of civilization kind of non-intimidating and friendly. But then again, there's the Civilopedia, where we have an entry here, you know, trying to make this game feel deep and important and something that you should have your kids and your parents play. And so we were really trying to figure this out as we went along, and there were no civilization games before us to guide us as to what we should do. So we kind of dipped our toe in a lot of different areas, but the bottom line to me, I think, and you know, Bruce, maybe you have a thought about this, is that the game was fun to play when we started, and as long as that was true, I think we felt we were on the right track, whether our jokes were lame or not. The game was fun, and I think that kind of what kept us going at the.
I think we learned the idea that I came up with this term called the inverted pyramid of decision making, where the game starts with one little settler unit on the board, and that you have a decision what direction that unit moves. And quickly you've got cities and more units, and the number of decisions that you have, your choices go up like this. I call it the inverted pyramid of decision making. Now years later I came up with the idea that you had 15 minutes at that time to engage someone in your game, otherwise you might lose them and they'd be gone. I think today we'd face a situation where you have 2 or 3 minutes to get somebody interested in a game today, but then we had more time, and I thought we did. I think we borrowed from other guys, or like Empire Deluxe. He started with just something simpler, and it grew. We captured that same sense, I think, and I think that was a good. We did that well, or you did that well.
Yeah, I think our gift was to know what to steal from other games.
Yeah, how much to borrow and how much to invent yourself.
So. Was this did we do this right or wrong? I think the jury is still out. When you look at how the Civilization series has evolved, humor has not necessarily been a big part of the succeeding Civ games, but it was really an indication of kind of how unsure we were about was this game going to be taken seriously by players, or was it something we needed to really kind of lighten up and make more accessible in that way?
I think we found a good balance. I mean, I felt good about it. One other point I made a note of is that I think we did a good job of telling the players that he or she was doing a good job. You know, we loved the King Day parades, and there was like